and welcome to Listen Up Homebuyers, a podcast from the National Association of Exclusive Buyer Agents. I'm Victoria Ray Henderson, the host, and I'm really happy to have one of my friends on today to talk about fair housing and some other important issues. Rich Rosa, the co-founder of Buyers Brokers Only, an exclusive buyer brokerage in the greater Boston area. Rich, thank you so much for coming on Listen Up Homebuyers.
Thank you so much for having me, Victoria.
I'm so happy to have you. April is Fair Housing Month. Why is Fair Housing Month celebrated? What's important about it?
Well, the Fair Housing Act was the bill was passed in April of 1968. That's why we celebrate fair housing in April. And what that means is that when it comes to rentals and purchasing homes, real estate agents, property owners, landlords, they can't discriminate against people because of their race, their religion, their sex, their marital status, their disability, their national origin. Actually, it's familial status on the federal level. In Massachusetts, we have additional protected classes that include marital status, veterans, sexual orientation, and source of income are additional protected classes that we have in Massachusetts. And so, we celebrate fair housing to make sure that everyone has a fair chance to get a place to live. And it's a really important topic this year, I think, because there's a lot going on the national level, a lot of conversations about what are referred to as pocket listings or private listing networks. And there are some large real estate brokerages that are pushing for the ability to do that. There are some rules with regards to the National Association of Realtors, something they call CCP, clear cooperation. And there are brokerages that don't want that anymore. They want to be able to not have to list their properties on an MLS, and they want to have those as private listings. In my opinion, I think those are anti-consumer. They lead to more dual agency, which is when the same agent represents both the buyer and the seller, and I think that conflict is obvious, and it shouldn't take a lot of explanation to figure out why that's not a good idea, whether you're a seller or a buyer. And the other issue is that it provides a end around to fair housing, right? If people aren't aware of a listing, then you could exclude certain types of people. And that's the whole point of fair housing, to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to get housing, whether it be rentals or whether it be purchasing homes. And also, it's just, it's also bad for sellers because if their house is not being seen by the largest amount of people possible, then that's going to limit how many offers they might get or the price they might get and things like that. So it's a problem, but it's really a problem.
I agree.
For fair housing.
I think a lot of consumers come up to a real estate agent who hands them a dual agency agreement and says, well, this is just part of the package, or this is just something that you'll need to sign if you want to work with me and also see some of the listings that my brokerage carries. And there isn't enough information provided to the consumer to understand what exactly is happening when you're a buyer and you sign that dual agency agreement. You are immediately agreeing to having limited services, and that is something that when you're making the biggest purchase of your life, why in the world would you do that? But I don't think people really understand how important it is to make sure that you have that full representation.
And when you're talking about pocket listings or private listing networks, it almost forces the buyer to sign that dual agency agreement because they feel like, well, I can't see this house because this listing agent has it. They're keeping it hidden from the general population and from other agents. So now I feel obligated to sign this dual agency agreement because otherwise I'm not going to be able to see this particular home that I want to see or several homes that I want to see. So that's the other issue, is that it's creating more dual agency because buyers feel pressure.
Yeah, it's almost like they're dangling this thing out there saying, hey, if you want to see this beautiful home, and there are times when a pocket listing would make sense, but there They're certainly rare, or at least they should be.
but they're selling a house that, let's say, is more than
Mm-hmm.
$10 million or $15 million, and they might want to, in that case, also limit how many people are going through. Although there are other
Mm-hmm.
ways to do that. The listing agent, if you're selling a $10 million house, I don't think it's unreasonable for the listing agent to say to other agents, well, if you're going to bring a buyer through, I need to
Right.
know that they're qualified either through a pre-approval or through some sort of
Right.
proof
Right.
of funds to buy this type of house before I show it. So there's other ways to limit so that you're not having just
Yeah.
looky loos coming through your $15 million
Right.
house.
I've actually met in luxury homes in the area. I've met listing agents who say, well, my seller wants me to be here while anybody is here. And I totally respect that and understand that. But getting back to the pocket listing for most people, you want to flush out any other details that you think people should be aware of?
Well, I think, I know that the National Association of Realtors this week um, had some conversations about whether they'll continue with their clear cooperation policy. And I think, the determination was they kind of split the
Yeah.
baby, so to speak, and are letting it, they're okaying it, sort of private listings or pocket listings for a short period of time, but then still continuing on with the clear cooperation. Honestly, I think that at this point, I'm not sure that the National Association of Realtors is all that relevant. And I think state legislatures
Mm-hmm.
need to pick up the ball
Mm-hmm.
and run with it here and ask themselves, do we want a situation where we're giving property owners and listing agents the ability to do an
Yeah.
end around fair housing? I think so. I think this really needs to become
Yeah.
a state issue. Obviously, Congress isn't going to do anything because they can't agree on anything anymore. So it's really going to be up to to
Right.
state legislatures to, I think, take this and make sure that fair housing is protected, that home buyers are protected by not being, you know, forced is probably not the right word, but feeling obligated to sign a dual
Mm-hmm.
agency agreement. I think that's, you know, where the
Yeah,
next
I
steps are going
agree.
to have to
You know,
be.
unfortunately, in these situations, some bad actors come to the surface. And just last week in Alexandria, Virginia, my clients went to an open house, and the listing agent who was at the open house told them that he had a pocket listing down the street, and that he would take them to see it. They said, "Oh, we're already working with someone," and he said, "Well, if you want to see the house, I'm the one who can get you in." And they just flatly said, "We're not interested." And they told me about it, which I found to be, kind of profound that somebody would be that pushy.
Well, it's not just really pushy. I mean,
It
it's
is.
quite unethical. I mean, um, it's and good for your clients for recognizing that it wasn't in their best interest
Yeah.
to go with the listing agent to go see this place. Um, obviously he's representing the seller. He's going to try to get the highest price and the best terms for the seller, and
Right.
that's just not good for the buyer. Um, and if and unfortunately for those sellers, here are two people that might have been interested in seeing that place and are not going to do it now because of that
Exactly.
agent's
Yeah.
tactics.
Exactly.
So that doesn't just hurt buyers, but it hurts those sellers as well.
Anything. Rich Rosa is the co-founder of Buyers Brokers Only, a greater Boston area exclusive buyer brokerage. Rich, once again, thank you so much for joining me on Listen Up Homebuyers.
You're welcome. Thank you, Victoria, for having me.